What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer. A few days ago, Wired.com released a video interview with Overwatch's lead writer Michael Chu. In this interview, he went through every Overwatch hero and talked a little bit about their in-game backstory or development process. While most of the things he mentioned were either already known or fairly trivial, some heroes he actually revealed some brand new details or insight about their character. So today, I'm going to compile and discuss some of the most intriguing new things we've learned regarding the heroes of Overwatch. First up is Doomfist.
Actually, a few years ago was the first time that we even did artwork for him. And one of the amazing things about that first look is that for years we didn't touch it until we were actually going to make the hero, and we pulled it out again and we found that we still loved it.
I think this bit of development history is pretty interesting because it explains why the current Doomfist was portrayed on the old Numbani map posters as just a silhouette. Blizzard had already developed a character design for him, but weren't sure whether or not that would be what he ultimately looked like. So in the event where they had decided to go with a completely different design, they wouldn't have to retcon anything in-game if they only had him portrayed ambiguously like this. Quite a clever strategy on their part.
There are a number of Doomfists in the history of the Overwatch universe, so it's sort of a title that's been carried by different characters. The original Doomfist was a really good guy, one of the heroes of the Omnic Crisis, but the current Doomfist, most people would say a little bit more of a villain.
This bit is even more exciting to hear about. It basically, for the first time ever, confirms the speculations people made way back in the day before Doomfist was added to the game. Up until this interview, we knew nothing of the first Doomfist other than what's displayed on this poster. We could assume that he was a good guy, given that his title was the Savior, but now we know that he played a role in the Omnic Crisis, and was in fact regarded as a hero. Hopefully, we'll get more information about the past Doomfists at some point in the future, but given how many other more prominent Overwatch characters are also lacking fleshed out backstories, I'm not going to be holding my breath. Next up is a bit of trivia regarding the origins of Hanzo and Genji.
The story of Genji and Hanzo as characters came from a place that you might not expect it. I really like watching all these food documentaries, and I watched this one, Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which has a subplot about these two brothers, and I thought a lot about the idea of this older brother who had to inherit kind of his father's restaurant and carry on that legacy, and then the younger brother who is free to do sort of whatever he wants. And so Genji is the younger brother. He doesn't have the baggage of Hanzo. He doesn't have to worry about carrying on the family legacy, and ultimately that creates a lot of friction between Hanzo and Genji.
This bit I thought was hilarious. As far as I could find, it's never been revealed before that Hanzo and Genji's personalities were based off of a Japanese family of chefs. Now I really want to see chef skins for the two of them, although that's much more than likely just wishful thinking. Next up is another amusing bit of trivia, this time regarding Tracer.
One of the things that you might not think of that is really iconic to Tracer is her giggle, and we had to do so many giggles just to get the perfect, hee. Well, that's not a good giggle, but we worked with a actress, Cara Theobald, and she has this natural giggle, so we've probably had her giggle more than anything or any other character, and we have this library, and it's always fun when we get to do that.
Honestly, simply knowing that this library of Tracer giggles exists out there somewhere terrifies me. I can't think of a more perfect hell than being strapped down to a chair and forced to listen to them all on loop for the rest of eternity. I really don't want to think about that. Let's move on. The next hero Chu talked about was Bastion, and the ordeal it takes to simply record his voice lines.
Bastion is actually voiced by Chris Metzen, who is our creative director. He goes into the booth and we have this whole processing setup that transforms the sounds that he makes into kind of the beeps and the boops and the words. Chris will tell you that it's more like playing a musical instrument than a direct translation, and I always have fun with these sessions because I tell him to do stuff like, oh, I need you to kind of sound scared, so maybe like a ooh, or something like that, and he'll have to yell to make sounds like that happen. So there's this big disconnect between what the sounds he makes and then what you ultimately hear are. And one of the hardest, most challenging things is to have Bastion make sounds musically. And once I had Chris do that the first time, I decided I loved it. So Bastion will hum Christmas tunes, he will hum kind of little musical notes, and that part is so hard for Chris to do because, again, he can sing something in tune, but it will not translate that way. And so I'll have him there trying to whistle the Overwatch tune for like 10 minutes.
I never would have imagined how difficult it'd be to record a bunch of beeps and boops. It's really kind of sad to think that all this effort goes into specifically making each one of his voice lines, only for the majority of players to glaze over them in the hero gallery, because they all just sound so similar and aren't real words. I, for one, am going to be much more appreciative now of Bastion's voice, and I doubt I'll ever hear him the same way again. Next is a bit of backstory about Deva, and more specifically, MEKA.
Ever since the Omnic crisis, Korea is routinely attacked, every couple of years or so by this massive Omnic that comes out of the sea, and these MEKA pilots come out to defend the country. For decades, Korea used drones to fight them off, but then one day when this Omnic monstrosity reappeared, it had this ability to jam all their communications, and so Korea was forced to employ pilots to be able to fight the threat. And so when they were looking at who the best candidates to pilot these mech suits were, they decided to turn to the professional gamers of Korea because of their abilities and their gameplay strategies and their APM. And so Deva is sort of considered to be the best gamers in Korea to be a member of the squad. And so she's in this squad with these other pilots who, have similar skills like her. There's some other gamers, and then you've got like pilots or like a F1 driver.
Now, most of what he talked about here was already known. We knew that MEKA fights off a giant kaiju-style Omnic that rises time and time again out of the sea, and that MEKA employed professional gamers to fight it off. However, this is the first time we've heard about the other kinds of people enlisted to pilot mechs. The two Chu mentions are pilots, presumably fighter pilots or something similar, and then he specifically mentions an F1 driver. For those of you who don't know, F1 or Formula 1 is a class of car racing that features vehicles that look a little something like this. I'm sure you've seen them before. Given that Chu mentioned an F1 driver specifically and in the singular form, makes me think that at the very least, Blizzard has internally discussed the idea of there being a race car driver hero. Maybe it's an idea they've already scrapped, and given that they're evidently also a part of MEKA, they'd probably be too similar to Deva to ever get added to the game at this point anyways. But up until now, I never realized how cool it'd be to have a race car driver as a playable hero, and now I really want one. Also, Tracer already has her racing legendary skins, but I would not be surprised if one day we saw Deva get a race car skin too. It would not only fit her design and character personality, but also we've already gotten a car version of her mech with her cruiser skin. So I have no doubt about it being a realistic possibility. If there's anything from this video that I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for, it's an F1 Racer Deva skin. Moving on to the last hero worth mentioning, we have some more tidbits of info regarding Moira.
We thought that the idea of a villainous healer would be really fun. When we looked at the Talon characters, we thought there really needed to be someone to take care of them. Also, from a story perspective, Moira has a lot of relationships to different characters in the Overwatch story. Moira was part of Blackwatch, so she knows everyone who is in the Blackwatch organization. She was specifically recruited by Reyes because Reyes sort of identified her talent with genetics, and Reyes might have had some genetics issues that he wanted some scientific help with.
Now, the thing that stood out to me here isn't regarding Moira specifically, but rather Reaper. The fact that Chu mentions that Reaper, or Reyes, had some genetics issues that he wanted help with may actually be hinting at something we didn't know before regarding his character. I think the majority of us thought Reyes ended up becoming Reaper as a result of the fight he had with Jack Morrison at the Swiss Overwatch HQ, where an explosion led people to think that they both had been killed. It seemed like Reaper's Wraith form was the result of him almost dying, but as seen in Moira's backstory video, it looks like she was already conducting tests on him prior to him experiencing any kind of severe external bodily damage. Given that we now know that his reason for recruiting Moira had to do with his own genetics issues, you have to wonder what actually is going on with him. The first thing that comes to my mind is that he has cancer or some other kind of terminal illness, likely one that's bound to his genes. I seem to recall that in some other past interview, Either Michael Chu or Jeff Kaplan mentioned the scene of him from the 2016 Reflections comic, and acknowledged that there was some significance regarding the family he's looking at. I'm starting to get the feeling that Blizzard has some kind of in-depth backstory for Reaper, just waiting to be released. So we might be able to expect a new comic or cinematic featuring him sometime pretty soon. And that will wrap up all the most interesting details revealed in Michael Chu's interview. I encourage you to check it out for yourself to see everything I didn't talk about, and you can find a link to it down in the description. Be sure to leave a comment with your thoughts about anything I talked about here today, and you can vote for your favorite revealed information in today's poll card. Be sure to leave a like, and you can subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit the bell to both help out my channel and keep up with all my future Overwatch-related content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.